My name is Emily Carson. I'm 34, an elementary school teacher in a small Connecticut town, and if you had asked me a year ago, I would have said my life was painfully ordinary. 2 kids, a husband named Mark, a mortgage we could barely manage, and the kind of routine that wore grooves into your soul if you weren't careful. Maybe that's why I didn't notice, at first, how deep the cracks had already run in my marriage. Maybe that's why, when Mark sat me down at our kitchen table one Sunday evening, I actually laughed when he said, "I think we need help, Em." Help. Such a simple word for something so tangled. We met in college, Mark and I. He was a business major with easy dimples and restless eyes. I was an English major with a fascination for things I could never quite hold on to: old books, forgotten stories, people who left more than they stayed. Mark was different back then, hungry for me, for life, for a future he could shape with his hands. But 12 years later, I'd wake up some nights and look at the curve of his back turned toward me, wondering who he dreamed about when he wasn't dreaming about me. A therapist? I asked him that night, my voice sharp with something between mockery and fear. He shrugged, didn't look at me, just twisted his wedding ring around his finger the way he did when he was trying not to say something cruel. "I can't keep doing this, Em. The fights. The silence. The kids hear it. We need help." The kids. There it was. Our 2 bright, nosy, impossibly perceptive kids, Mason and Lily, who knew too much already about closed doors and muffled voices. So I agreed. Not because I thought it would work, but because I wanted to say I'd tried. A week later, we were sitting in a soft beige office that smelled faintly of lavender and stale coffee. The sign outside read, "Dr. Jonathan Harris, Marriage and Family Therapist." He looked harmless enough, late 50s, maybe older, gray hair combed back, wire-framed glasses perched on a long nose, a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He stood when we entered, offered his hand first to Mark, then to me. His grip lingered, warm but oddly searching. "Emily." "Mark. Please, sit anywhere you'd like," he said, his voice smooth, practiced, the kind that made you want to lean in and confess things you hadn't even told yourself yet. Mark sat stiffly on the couch. I perched beside him, clutching my purse like a shield. Dr. Harris settled into an armchair opposite us, a notebook balanced on one knee. I noticed his shoes, polished brown leather, a scuff near the toe. Little details. I'm a teacher, I notice things. "Why don't we start," he said, folding his hands, "with you, Emily. Tell me about you. About how you and Mark met. What you love about him. What you don't." His eyes didn't move from mine the whole time. There was something in them, too intent, too knowing. I stumbled through the usual story: the college meet cute, the first apartment with mold in the bathroom, the wedding that almost didn't happen because Mark lost his job 2 weeks before. All of it came tumbling out, and all the while Dr. Harris nodded, scribbled something, hummed softly. When Mark spoke, it felt rehearsed. "We fight about money. About the kids. About her family, sometimes." "My family?" I turned to him, startled. "What about my family?" He shrugged again, eyes down. "Your mom. The way you never talk about your dad." A silence settled between us. Dr. Harris leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his eyes pinning me in place. "Tell me about your father, Emily." I flinched. "There's nothing to tell. He left before I was born. My mom said he didn't want kids. I'd told that lie so often it felt like the truth. My mother's truth, anyway." Dr. Harris only nodded again, scribbling something so furiously I thought he'd tear through the page. We left that first session awkwardly polite. Mark squeezed my hand in the parking lot, like we'd done something brave. I felt scraped raw, like I'd handed a stranger the keys to a door I'd always kept locked. The second session felt worse. Dr. Harris focused more on me than on Mark. He asked about my childhood, my mother's string of boyfriends, the way I'd buried myself in books to block out the shouting and slammed doors. He asked if I ever wondered why my father never tried to find me. I snapped then, said something bitter about deadbeat dads, about men who plant seeds and run. Mark looked at me like he'd never heard me speak that way. By the third session, Dr. Harris barely looked at Mark. His questions drilled deeper. How did I feel about being a mother? Did I worry I'd turn out like my mother? Did I ever dream about my father coming back? He said my name often, too often, Emily, Emily, Emily. Like tasting it. I told myself it was normal. That therapy was supposed to feel uncomfortable. That maybe it was good, this digging. Then, the fourth session. That was the day the ground cracked open under my feet. Dr. Harris waited until Mark was late, he always was, and then turned to me, his glasses sliding down his nose. He asked if I believed in second chances. If I thought people deserved to fix what they'd broken. I didn't understand at first, why his voice trembled, why he suddenly looked so much older, so tired. Then he said it. Just like that. Emily. I'm your father. I laughed. Actually laughed, sharp and ugly in that small, lavender-scented room. But he didn't smile. He just looked at me with eyes that were suddenly, horrifyingly, familiar. I'm your father. And I've been watching over you. Your whole life. I've seen everything. And now I'm here to make things right. To fix what I broke. Starting with you. With your family. I opened my mouth but no sound came out. Behind me, the door clicked. Mark stepped in, frowning at the silence, at the look on my face. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I don't remember the rest of that session. I remember Mark's voice somewhere behind me, Emily? What's wrong? Emily? And Dr. Harris, no, Jonathan, saying something about a breakthrough and processing. I remember my pulse hammering in my ears, so loud it drowned out everything else. I remember standing in the parking lot afterward, staring at the minivan, keys in my hand, but no idea how to use them. Mark didn't press me that night. He drove us home in silence, glancing at me every few seconds like he was waiting for me to crack open and explain myself. I couldn't. How do you tell your husband that the man who's supposed to fix your marriage is the ghost who abandoned you before your first breath? How do you say he's been watching me without sounding insane? Mason and Lily were waiting when we got home, Mason perched on the couch with his homework, Lily in her princess pajamas, demanding a bedtime story. I read to them, my voice a stranger's voice, the words floating out in a fog. Mark tucked them in and came back to find me sitting at the kitchen table, staring at my hands. Emily, he said softly. What happened today? I looked at him, really looked. The fine lines around his eyes, the worry etched into his brow. Mark had always been a steady man, even when he was careless. But I couldn't give him this. Not yet. Nothing, I lied. I just got overwhelmed. He didn't believe me. I could see it in the way his mouth tightened. But he didn't push. Instead, he just nodded, kissed my forehead, and went upstairs. I sat alone for hours, the house dark around me, listening for footsteps that weren't there. That night, I dreamed I was 5 years old again, hiding under my mother's bed while a man's voice boomed from the living room. A voice I could never quite remember. In the dream, the door creaked open and a pair of polished shoes appeared. The same brown leather, scuffed at the toe. When I woke, my pillow was wet. I didn't cancel the next session. I should have. Any normal person would have. But something inside me had cracked, a fissure leaking a sick curiosity I couldn't dam up. I needed to hear him say it again. I needed to know he hadn't just planted some poison in my head for his own amusement. So, a week later, I found myself back in that soft beige office. Mark sat beside me, thumbing through emails on his phone, oblivious. Dr. Harris, Jonathan, acted normal. Polite questions. How was work, how were the kids, had Mark and I talked more at home? His eyes flicked to me, tiny sparks of secret understanding in them. I could barely meet them. Mark did most of the talking. He complained about how distant I'd become, how he felt like he was trying and I was retreating further into myself. He didn't know the half of it. I felt hollow, every word bouncing around the empty cathedral of my mind. Jonathan said all the right things, about communication, shared vulnerability, active listening. But I could see it now, the slight tremor when he said my name, the way his eyes softened when I shifted in my seat, the way his hand lingered near mine when he passed me a glass of water. Afterward, when Mark went to the restroom, Jonathan leaned closer. His voice dropped, his eyes boring into mine. Emily, I know this is a lot. But we need to talk privately. There's more you deserve to know. I swallowed. My mouth was dry. You shouldn't be doing this. This is sick. He smiled, gentle, almost sad. It's not sick. It's overdue. I failed you once. I won't fail you again. I wanted to spit at him. I wanted to scream, to run, to claw at his face until I could scrape away the father and reveal the stranger beneath. But I just sat there. Frozen. Mark came back, oblivious as always, and we left together. That night, I waited until Mark fell asleep, his soft snoring filling the dark, and crept downstairs. I pulled out the old box my mother had left me when she died. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside were scraps of my childhood, report cards, photos, a lock of baby hair in an envelope. And a birth certificate. I stared at the line that read father, unknown for a long time. Underneath, I found an old photograph I'd never really looked at before. My mother, young and furious-eyed, leaning against a battered car. Beside her, a man half in shadow, tall, lean, a slouch in his shoulders. He had one hand on her waist, the other on her stomach. Protectively, almost possessively. His face was blurred, but something about the shape of his jaw, the slight hook of his nose. I shoved the photo away. 2 days later, I did what I'd never done, I Googled him. Dr. Jonathan Harris. The website was sparse, degrees from NYU and Yale, 25 years in family therapy, articles in a few psychology journals. No mention of children. No social media. A ghost who knew how to stay hidden. I called in sick the next day and drove across town to the address listed on his file. His real home, not the neat little office. A brick colonial on a street lined with old maples. I parked down the block and watched. An hour passed. Then I saw him, stepping out onto the porch, locking the door behind him. He stood there for a moment, looking right at my car. I swear he knew. Then he walked away. I got out, heart hammering, and crept to the side window. Peered in. The living room was lined with books, psychology, history, a few photo albums stacked carelessly on a side table. I slipped around back, found a window cracked open just enough. I shouldn't have, but I did. Inside, it smelled like him, lavender and old paper. The books were full of notes, scribbled in tight, frantic handwriting. But it was the wall that made me gasp. Photos. Hundreds of them. Me as a child. Me at prom. Me at my wedding, veil half raised. Me pushing Mason in a stroller, Lily on my hip. Some taken from across streets. Some from behind bushes. Years of me. My whole life, pinned up like a butterfly collection. My knees buckled. I stumbled back, nearly knocked over a stack of boxes. A floorboard creaked. Then his voice, right behind me. Emily. I turned. He stood in the doorway, his eyes dark and shining. He didn't look angry. He looked relieved. Now, he said, stepping toward me, arms open like some twisted messiah, we can really begin. I didn't scream. Maybe I should have, maybe some primal part of me should have shattered the silence with an animal howl, slammed my fists into his chest, run for the door. But I stood there, trapped between the wall of my own stolen life and the man who'd stolen it. Jonathan, my father, didn't touch me. Not yet. He just stood there in that doorway, the soft glow of a lamp behind him turning his hair to a silver halo. Emily, he said again, tasting my name like a secret. I didn't want you to find this yet. Not like this. I forced my mouth to move. How long? The word cracked, dry as bone. How long have you been, watching me? He smiled, gentle. Patient. Always. My throat clenched around bile. Why? Why now? Why this? Therapy? Mark? My marriage? What are you doing? He stepped inside, closer to the wall, his eyes flicking to the photos, his trophies. I left because I was weak. Your mother, she wouldn't let me near you. She said I would ruin you. He laughed softly, as if the idea were absurd. So I watched. I made sure you were safe. But you're not safe now, Emily. Look at your marriage. Look at your life. Look at you. His voice softened into a whisper. You're breaking. You're alone, even with him. I can help. This is my chance to fix what I ruined. I backed up until my spine hit the wall, the push pins biting into my shoulder. My own face stared back at me from every angle, baby, girl, woman, mother. All under his gaze. You're sick, I hissed. You think this helps? You think this stalking, is love? He flinched. Just a flicker, quickly smoothed away. Don't call it that. I'm your father. I love you more than anyone ever could. I shoved past him, chest heaving, the walls too close. I stumbled down the hall, found the front door, locked, of course. Keys on a hook by the stairs. I grabbed them, my hands shaking so badly they fell twice before I snatched them up again. Behind me, his footsteps, calm, unhurried. Emily, wait. Please. You don't have to be afraid of me. I'm not your enemy. Mark is your enemy. He's been hurting you for years. I've seen it. I can fix it. I spun on him, keys clenched so tight the metal cut into my palm. Stay away from me. From my kids. From Mark. If you come near us again, I'll... He smiled. That same patient, pitying smile. You'll what? Tell Mark? Call the police? What will you tell them, Emily? That your therapist says he's your father? That he has pictures of you? Do you think they'll believe you? He wasn't threatening me outright. He didn't have to. The truth was poison in my mouth already, impossible to say out loud without sounding insane. I fled. Out the door, into the night, gasping for air that wouldn't fill my lungs. I didn't go home. I couldn't. Mark would ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. So I drove, past the grocery store where I bought the same milk every week, past the school where Mason would soon learn algebra, past the park where Lily picked dandelions and called them wishes. I ended up at my mother's grave. It was just a cheap granite marker in a half-forgotten cemetery at the edge of town. No flowers, no fancy script, just Susan Carter, beloved mother. A lie chiseled in stone. I dropped to my knees in the wet grass, my breath fogging the cold air. Why? I whispered. Why didn't you tell me? Why him? Why like this? No answer. Just the wind in the bare branches overhead. I sat there until dawn bruised the horizon pink and gray. My phone buzzed again and again, Mark asking where I was. I didn't answer. When I did come home, Mark was pacing the living room, hair disheveled, the kids at school, thank God. Emily. Where the hell were you? I called you all night. I pushed past him, dropped my purse, sank onto the couch. We're not going back, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. Mark stared at me. What are you talking about? Therapy. We're not going back to him. He ran a hand over his mouth. Emily, what happened? Did he say something? Did he? I met his eyes. We're not going back. Silence thickened between us. He sank into the armchair opposite me, elbows on his knees, eyes searching my face for clues. You're scaring me. Good, I said. He didn't believe me, of course. Mark was too practical for secrets he couldn't poke holes in. He demanded explanations I wouldn't give. He called Dr. Harris, Jonathan, left messages that went unanswered. He tried to reschedule. Jonathan ignored him. And then the letters started coming. The first one was slipped under our door one morning, the envelope thick cream, my name in neat handwriting I recognized instantly. Inside, no threats, no confessions. Just a single sentence, I'm not the enemy, Emily. I never was. I burned it in the sink. The next one came tucked into Mason's backpack, a folded sheet tucked between his math worksheets. You don't have to do this alone. I didn't tell Mark. What would I say? That the man we trusted with our ugliest truths was watching our children? That he was my father? By the fifth letter, I knew what he was doing, driving me mad piece by piece. He didn't need to break in or shout threats from the lawn, he was already inside. In my walls, my head, my bed. I started seeing him everywhere, his car parked down the street, a shadow in the grocery store aisle, a figure behind the trees at Lily's soccer practice. And always the same whisper, humming behind my ribs, I can fix this. Let me fix this. Mark and I barely spoke. We fought in whispers behind closed doors, our arguments sharp enough to make Mason and Lily creep up the stairs with wide, guilty eyes. I hated that he was right, that my children were learning the language of broken families just like I had. And maybe, just maybe, that was what he wanted. For me to crack open wide enough to crawl inside. One night, I stood at the kitchen window and saw him, just a silhouette across the street, standing under the streetlight like he belonged there. I opened the door. Stepped outside barefoot, the porch boards cold under my feet. "Emily," he called, his voice a low purr across the dark. "It doesn't have to be this way." Inside, Mark shouted after me. But I didn't hear him. I heard only my father. And some small, terrible part of me wondered what would happen if I just let him in. The porch light flickered behind me as I stepped off the stoop. The street was slick with drizzle, shining under the lone street lamp where he stood, Jonathan, my father, my therapist, my shadow. He didn't move toward me. He just waited, hands folded in front of him, like a priest ready to hear my confession. I felt the soft crush of damp grass under my bare feet. Every part of me screamed to run back inside, lock the door, hide behind Mark's half-useful arms. But I didn't. I walked right up to him. "You shouldn't be here," I hissed. My voice came out thinner than I wanted, all breath and tremor. He tilted his head, studying me with that calm, clinical softness that made my skin crawl. "But you came out, didn't you? That means you wanted me here. Stop. Stop leaving things. Stop watching." He took a step closer. Not touching, but close enough for me to see the rain catching in the creases around his eyes. "I can't stop. I won't. You don't understand yet, but you will." He slipped a hand into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope, thinner than the letters, almost weightless. He offered it to me. I didn't take it. I just stared at it like it might crawl up my arm and burrow under my skin. "What is it?" I whispered. "A truth your mother never gave you," he said, voice so gentle it nearly broke me. "Take it. When you're ready." Behind me, the porch door banged open. Mark's footsteps on the wood, heavy, angry. "Emily. What the fuck is this?" Jonathan's eyes flicked past me to Mark. He smiled, slow and pitying. "Good evening, Mark." Mark stormed across the yard, grabbed my arm, yanking me backward. "Inside. Now. Emily, inside." Jonathan didn't flinch. He just raised the envelope a little higher, holding my gaze. "When you're ready." Mark's grip tightened. I let him pull me. The envelope fell at my feet in the wet grass. I left it there. He made me sit on the couch, slammed the door behind us so hard a picture frame rattled off the hallway wall. Mason and Lily weren't home, thank God, thank God. They were at Mark's mother's for the night, a last-minute sleepover that had felt like a gift when I needed quiet. Now the quiet felt like a trap. "What was that?" Mark demanded. His voice wasn't loud, just low and sharp, coiled tight like a wire. "Who the hell is he really, Emily? What the fuck is going on?" I opened my mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "Emily. My father," I choked out. The words hit the air like a slap. "He's my father." Mark's mouth worked soundlessly. He looked like I'd just handed him a live snake. "You're what?" "My biological father," I said, quieter now. "Jonathan. Dr. Harris. He left my mom before I was born. He knew where I was. He's been watching me. Us." Mark stared at me like he couldn't see me at all. Then he laughed, a dry, mirthless bark. "Jesus Christ. So this is some sick joke. He's scamming you." "It's not a scam," I snapped. "He has photos, Mark. All my life. Since I was a baby." Mark raked both hands through his hair, pacing the small living room like a trapped animal. "This is insane. We have to call the cops." "We have to." "And tell them what?" I said. My voice cracked on a laugh that wasn't funny. "That my therapist says he's my father and he's been spying on us? There's no crime in that. Not really. He hasn't touched me. He hasn't done anything. Yet," Mark shot back, eyes wild. "Not yet. Christ, Emily, why didn't you tell me sooner?" I looked down at my hands. The skin there was raw where my nails had dug in. "Because I didn't know how." He crouched in front of me, grabbed my hands, his palms rough and warm. "We'll fix this. We'll file a restraining order, get the kids out." "You don't understand," I said. I hated how small I sounded. He doesn't want to hurt me. He wants to fix me. Mark recoiled like I'd slapped him. What the fuck does that mean? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Not really. After Mark fell into an exhausted sleep on the couch, I sat awake in the dark, staring at the backyard through the kitchen window. The envelope was still out there, soaked through with rain, the paper limp against the grass. At midnight, I slipped outside and picked it up. My fingers trembled as I tore it open under the porch light. Inside, one photo. Not of me this time. My mother. Younger than I'd ever seen her. And Jonathan beside her, his arm draped over her shoulders. In her arms, a baby wrapped tight in a hospital blanket. Me. On the back, Jonathan's handwriting, small and neat, "You were never unwanted." I sat on the porch steps until dawn, the photo clutched to my chest. When I went back inside, Mark was awake, bleary-eyed, watching me from the hallway. "You have to choose, Emily," he said. No anger left, just tired fear. Him or us? I didn't answer. Because some part of me, a part one hated, wasn't so sure there was a choice left to make. The next session was scheduled for Monday. I told Mark I wouldn't go. He took Mason to practice, Lily to the park. But when they were gone, I found myself driving there anyway. I don't know what I told myself. Maybe that I'd end it once and for all. Maybe that I'd demand he leave us alone. I parked out front, my hands numb on the wheel. The office door was unlocked. Jonathan was waiting inside, sitting in the chair he always used, the notebook balanced on his knee. Like nothing had changed at all. "Emily," he said softly, and my name felt like a trap closing around my throat. "Come sit. We have so much more to talk about." I sat. Of course I did. I don't remember deciding to sit down. One moment I was standing in the doorway, coat still damp from the drizzle, heart hammering at my ribs like a bird trapped in a box. The next, I was on the couch, my purse slipping off my shoulder, my hands twisted tight in my lap. Jonathan watched me with that same terrible patience. The notebook lay closed on the side table now, forgotten, because there was nothing left to write. He knew every page already. He had written me before I was born. He poured tea from a chipped blue pot I'd never seen him use before. The steam coiled between us, smelling faintly of mint. He didn't ask if I wanted any. He just set a cup in front of me, perfectly centered on the glass coffee table. "Why am I here?" I asked, my voice scraping out like rust off old hinges. He tilted his head, that familiar gesture that used to seem thoughtful, gentle, wise. Now it looked reptilian, like he was tasting the air for weakness. "You came here because you know, deep down, there's nowhere else you can go." "Not anymore." I flinched. "I have a family. I have Mark. The kids. The kids are safe." His voice cut through mine, smooth and final. "I would never hurt them, Emily. You know that." My throat burned. I wanted to scream that he was hurting them, every photo, every whisper left behind like a breadcrumb to madness. But some terrible, traitorous part of me couldn't force the words out. Jonathan reached into his jacket pocket and drew out a small, dog-eared book. I recognized it before he even placed it in my hands, The Secret Garden. The copy I'd read until it fell apart when I was 8. The same yellowed pages, the same childish scribbles on the inside cover, Emily Carson, age 8. My mother must have thrown it away when we moved. Or so I thought. He watched my eyes widen. "I saved it," he said softly. "You left it behind." I couldn't. I wanted you to have it again. I stared at my own crooked scrawl. Emily Carson. I wanted to tear the book in half, fling it at his face, but my hands wouldn't obey. They only trembled. "I don't want this," I whispered. "You do," he said. He leaned forward, his knees brushing mine. I could smell his aftershave, lavender and cedar, the same scent that clung to the walls of his home, the same scent that would curl under my hair at night when I dreamed of footsteps outside my window. "You want to know what she never told you?" I squeezed my eyes shut. "She told me enough." He laughed then, a soft, pitying laugh that made me feel 5 years old. "She told you her version. But not the truth. The truth is that she took you from me. She told me you died, Emily." The words knocked the breath from my lungs. I opened my eyes, found his staring into mine, wet with a shine that could have been grief or madness or both. That's not true, I choked out. It is. She lied to you. She lied to me. I spent 5 years thinking you were gone. When I found out, I tried to see you. She shut the door in my face. Said if I came near again, she'd disappear with you for good. So I waited. I watched. I made sure you were safe, even if I couldn't hold you. He lifted a hand then, so slowly I didn't flinch until his fingertips brushed my cheek. I felt it like static, sharp and tender all at once. I'm here now. And I won't let anyone keep us apart again. I jerked away. The chair legs scraped loud against the floor. You're lying. He didn't react. He just let his hand drop to his knee, his fingers tapping a slow, patient rhythm. I've never lied to you. I never will. Not like your mother. Not like Mark. I barked a bitter laugh. Mark? He didn't lie to me. He's my husband. He's your jailer, Emily. You know that. Look at you. Do you feel loved? Protected? He's weak. He can't see you. Not like I do. He stood then, crossing the small space between us before I could move. His shadow fell over me, cold and complete. You're not broken, he whispered, close enough that I could taste the tea on his breath. You're unfinished. Let me finish what I started. The room felt smaller than it ever had. The soft beige walls were padded now, not with fabric but with secrets, mine, his, my mother's, Mark's. All of them pressing in until I could barely draw breath. Somewhere in that suffocating silence, I realized I was crying. Not sobbing, just silent tears, dripping hot onto the battered cover of the secret garden still clutched in my lap. He crouched, took my hands in his, warm and careful. I want you to come home. Home. The word cracked out of me. I have a home. With him? With a man who doesn't understand you. Who thinks you're crazy every time you open your mouth. I squeezed my eyes shut. Images flickered, Mark's angry voice, the kids peeking around corners, the nights I lay awake tracing cracks in the ceiling because it was easier than tracing cracks in us. Jonathan's voice dropped to a hush. Come home with me, Emily. Just for a while. Let me show you the truth. The letters, the photos, they're just the beginning. My voice came out small, splintered. What about Mason? Lily? They'll be safe, he promised, too quickly, too easily. This is about you, Emily. Let me take care of you the way I always should have. Let me fix it. His hand squeezed mine. In that moment, I hated him. Hated him for being here, for being right. Because somewhere, buried under the horror, a terrible softness bloomed. I wanted it to be true. I wanted him to be the answer to the question I'd asked my whole life. Why wasn't I enough? Maybe I still wasn't. But for him, maybe I could be. His thumb stroked my knuckles. Come with me now. My breath hitched. I can't. You can, he murmured, leaning so close his forehead brushed mine. You already have. I didn't remember standing. I didn't remember the door opening. But the next thing I knew, we were outside together. The sky was bruised with dusk, the air heavy with the promise of rain. His car waited at the curb, dark windows like a mouth open wide. I thought of Mark. I thought of Mason and Lily. I thought of the little girl under the bed listening to strangers fight over who she belonged to. I thought of how quiet it might be if I just stepped inside and shut the door behind me. Jonathan opened the passenger door, one hand resting lightly on my shoulder. Not pushing, never pushing. Just waiting. Come home, he said again. And I stepped forward. The car door clicked shut beside me with a finality that made my skin crawl. The interior smelled like him, lavender, old paper, and something metallic underneath, like stale coins. I sat frozen as he slipped behind the wheel, adjusted his glasses in the rearview mirror, and started the engine without a word. I didn't ask where we were going. He didn't offer. The streetlights blurred past the window in smears of orange and white. I pressed my palm to the glass, watching my breath fog the pain like I used to do as a child when my mother's boyfriends argued in the next room. This wasn't what I'd meant. I'd wanted him gone. I'd wanted my life back, Mark's heavy arms around me, the kids bickering about who got the last juice box, the creak of the front steps that told me I was home. But that door had shut behind me. Now there was only this. Jonathan glanced at me once, a faint smile pulling at the corner of his mouth. You're doing the right thing. I didn't answer. My throat was dry, my tongue thick and useless. He didn't take me to the house I'd broken into. That place was just a nest for his watching, a shrine, not a home. Instead, we drove deeper into the woods on the edge of town, where the roads narrowed and the trees grew so thick they pressed against the car windows like hungry fingers. The driveway was gravel, a long, winding snake of pale stone that crunched under the tires. At the end of it sat a cottage, small, old, half swallowed by the woods. Its porch light glowed warm in the darkness. A single bulb, flickering gently. Waiting for me. He killed the engine, but we didn't move right away. The silence inside the car felt alive, like it might whisper if I listened hard enough. You'll see, he murmured finally. Once you're inside, you'll understand everything. No more Mark. No more pretending. I turned to him then, the weight of his promise sinking through my bones. And the kids? He reached across the console, his hand hovering just above mine. Safe. They have Mark. But you, he touched my cheek with the back of his knuckles. You belong here. He led me up the steps, keys jangling in his pocket. The door swung open without a creak. Inside, the air was warm, smelling faintly of wood smoke and old pine. A fire burned low in the stone fireplace. Books lined every wall, tall stacks teetering like towers, yellowed pages curling at the edges. And the photos. So many photos. Framed this time, carefully arranged. Not just of me, though there I was, at every age, every heartbreak, every stolen smile. But there were others too. My mother, younger than I'd ever known her. A few shots of Mark and the kids, blurry, recent. And scattered among them, scraps of paper, old letters, hospital forms, scraps of notes in my mother's familiar angry script. This is where I kept you, Jonathan said, gesturing to the walls, the shelves, the fire. Every version of you. The real you. Not the one you pretended to be. He guided me to a chair near the fire, an old armchair, its fabric worn to threads at the arms. I sank into it without protest. My legs didn't feel like mine anymore. Jonathan knelt at my feet, his hands resting gently on my knees. All I ever wanted was to protect you. From her lies. From men like Mark. From yourself. My eyes stung. I hated him. I hated him so deeply it felt like acid in my veins. And still, some small, broken part of me wanted him to keep talking. Wanted to be seen, even like this. What now? I asked, my voice a stranger's rasp. He smiled, soft, paternal. Triumphant. Now you stay here. You rest. You see what she kept from you. What he could never give you. He rose and crossed the small room, pulling an old wooden box from a shelf. He laid it in my lap like an offering. Open it, he said. My fingers trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside, a tangle of old cassette tapes, each one labeled in neat block letters. Emily, age 2. Emily, age 5. Emily, first school day. Dozens of them, some so worn the labels were faded to ghosts. What is this? He crouched again, eyes bright behind his glasses. Your life. Every laugh, every cry I could capture. Every proof that you were mine. A sob clawed up my throat. I pressed a fist to my mouth, swallowing it down. The fire crackled, spitting sparks that danced across the stone hearth. You see? Jonathan whispered. You were never alone. Never unloved. Everything you needed was always here. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at those tapes. Minutes. Hours. The fire burned low, shadows climbing the walls where my face stared back at me, flickering in 100 captured moments. When I finally looked up, he was still there, watching me, patient, his hand resting on the arm of my chair. His thumb traced the fabric, worn smooth by years of waiting. Sleep now, he said, his voice soft as a lullaby. You'll understand more in the morning. He pressed something cold and small into my palm, a single old key on a tarnished brass ring. To your room, he said. Your real room. I didn't want it. I didn't want any of this. But I curled my fingers around the key anyway. When I lay down in the narrow bed that night, the tape stacked like sentinels on the dresser, the house so quiet I could hear my heartbeat echo off the old wooden beams. I thought of Mark. Of Mason. Of Lily's soft baby hair under my chin when I carried her to bed. I thought of how easy it would be to sleep forever in this nest of old lies and twisted love. Outside, in the woods, something howled, an animal, or maybe just the wind. Jonathan's footsteps creaked outside my door. The key weighed heavy under my pillow. Tomorrow, he would show me more. And maybe, by then, would be too far gone to care. Dr. Harris, Jonathan, my father, just smiled, as if this was exactly how it was always meant to be.